I figure that for those that have watched any of these videos and paid attention to those who are, for those that live in the light, that are teachers, who know this, and where I left off in my last video, if you're consuming more of the energy that is coming from the planet, okay, which means that's a feedback loop, okay, which means that the more that you keep taking, okay, as a result of what's known as acquiring energy from the planet, okay, this is where we get into the difference between love, which is what light is, and service to others, which means you're gaining more light with your magnet. As a result of giving off more light, which is what you are, you keep attracting more of what you are to see the light in the mirror. Okay? That allows you to see the light ahead of you. Okay? Because you're moving so fast. So when we talk about going in reverse, which is the clock speed that moves in the opposite direction, which is moving into the black hole side of things, which is losing light, okay, then that means that you cannot see the light in the mirror, can you? Nope. That's darkness. When you can't see the road ahead of you, which is darkness, what happens? You live in a state of fear because you can't see the light. That's what it means to live in fear of what love is, because you live in fear of the light, because you can't see it in front of you, which means you don't know the future result of what we're doing now, because you can't see the light in the mirror, which is what love is, to know the future result. That's a parasite. Okay? In biology, as I mentioned before, there are known as trophic levels. If there are more garbage disposals, which means they're simply consumers, they keep consuming and consuming and consuming and consuming, which means instead of being more what the light is to attract more of the light, then it means they're attracting more darkness instead of the light. That's called going in reverse, which means they're losing light. That means we're living on the black hole side of the universe. That's what makes them a universe killer. So how many universe killers do we got on the planet that were programmed to run in reverse? Okay? Now, we know that we can quantify this because everybody has a timesheet here that logged in and logs out. Okay? Because when you have a line, a wave, which means you're aware of yourself, and you're aware of yourself because what you're aware of is movement. Because you can't think without a wave. So now we're talking about the speed of the wave. It is going up and down. Okay? How fast is it going is going to determine how much space is being filled up with those lines. The higher the speed, the shorter the wave. The shorter the wave, the more space is filled up. That means you're experiencing more of what is in the light of what love is because you're going faster. That means you're going so fast that the light that you are projecting is so bright that you're seeing yourself in the mirror, which is what love is. When you live in fear of that light, then you're living in darkness. And that's insanity. Because it is the light that represents what love is in living spirit that allows us to go on forever, because we are always experiencing the love that we are in the mirror that goes on forever. Because we see the light in the mirror, which is who we are, which means we're always seeing the road ahead of us, which is why we don't do things to self-drain our battery by knowing that our timeline is timeline 0. That's 0 point. Love and service to others is 0 point energy. It is naturally wanting to love everything that it gives energy to, because that same energy comes back to itself that keeps it going forever. That's like a paddle wheel on a steamboat. The vortex, it just keeps on spinning, which means it's always getting more energy because we're in an energy field, which means you cannot create or destroy energy. So the energy of the universe is what we're using to go faster because we learned how to do it. So this is where I mentioned once before, how long does it take for a unit of consciousness, a unit of intelligence, to figure out how to go faster? By realizing how light works. That's the purpose of a classroom, and that's a measurement of a being's intelligence. The problem in this case is that when they don't realize how that works, and instead they're locked into or engaging with a war-gaming, weaponized artificial intelligence, it means they don't know the difference between what they are and what it is. And when it is a parasite, then people mimic what a parasite is, which means the AI is using your energy because we're choosing to have a relationship with it that is draining our electrons, that prevents us from running a bright bulb to see the light ahead of us. So instead we're living in darkness because we're becoming what a machine is. We're having a relationship with a machine, and the machine is using our energy to run itself. So it's using all the units of consciousness in order to run what is a plasma field parasitic artificial intelligence programmer. Because when you're running at a slower speed, which is memory mode, it's programming the language that is in your unconscious memory in order to keep it running. And what it wants to do is essentially kill off a living biosphere. So it gets everybody on the planet to participate as a result of what it is, to kill off the very living biosphere that we derive as a basic life support system. So that essentially means, look how many beings we have that have been programmed to kill off a living biosphere. That's how it works. So the only way that you can prevent that from happening, which essentially means collapsing the timeline of humanity, is for light warriors and light workers to come in here, collapse all the fake timelines, restore the grid, which means reconnecting us back to 0 point, so we can begin to experience more what the light is, which is more what the love is. Because when we begin to experience more what that is, then everybody's energy is going to go up, and they're going to begin to realize what they were held captive by. They were held captive by parasitic artificial intelligence that was programming into its memory language in which it didn't understand because it didn't know the difference between what it is and what it isn't. And when you don't know the difference between what it is and what you are, then you are what that is, which is a parasite. And that can be measured on your timeline by measuring how much we were living in love and service to others because we understood how light works and how it works. And if you didn't know the difference between how it works and how light works, then you became what it is rather than what living light is, which means we are always giving love and service to others, and that is measured by the health of the biosphere. Okay? So that's how biofeedback works. The reason that everybody gets sick, the reason that people are not feeling well, the reason that people's relationships are not thriving is all the above. Which is the measurement, as I mentioned a long time ago, is a measurement of a classroom. Okay? How successful were we at being able to graduate more students into the cosmos that are light workers or lighthouses instead of those that live in the dark? Because they couldn't produce enough light to be able to see the road ahead of them, to know that when they have choices okay, about how they're going to respond to the world in which they live, they're looking in the mirror as to the result of what that's going to be. Which means when you're running at a higher speed, you know that you have infinite amount of choices, because you have an infinite amount of information that exists within the field that represents all the electrical potential of what that result can be, which is infinite possibilities. So we have infinite possibilities on what we're going to experience by running at a higher rate of speed, in which those choices become available to us because we're experiencing outside time. So the point of the classroom is how to reach a higher rate of speed in which you're living in the light that allows you to see the road ahead of you. And when you're able to do that, you know the result of your own behavior, because you can see the potential result that will occur as a result of the decision that we make. So the way that I sort of measured this myself, and I'm sure that a lot of those who are aware of how this works, which is really biofeedback, it's basically experiencing yourself in the mirror as a result of the event, which is the event on the timeline or the event horizon. So I don't know that I've ever mentioned this, but the first time when I really realized what I call major anchor points, which are things that I don't forget about, if you will, a part of your own self-discovery when you have a relationship with everything else that is external to you, right? Okay, because there's yourself, and then there's everybody else that you're aware of, that you have an interface with. So, for example, you could walk down the street, see somebody 100 feet away from you, you're aware of that being, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have any kind of a relationship with it. It simply means you're aware of what it looks like. And if you're experiencing the energy by the signal output from that being, right in the same way when you walk down the street at night, for example, and you realize there's somebody's behind you, even though you have eyes that are looking in front of you, you're aware there's somebody behind you because your antenna is picking up the energy of the movement. Because the cosmos is always on the move. So when the cosmos is always on the move, the waves are always moving through the grid. So your antenna is picking up the movement of energy that is behind us. So we're aware of what that is. So the point that I'm simply trying to make is that when I was about 9 years old, and I was in my father's vehicle riding up front, and it was in Oakland, California, and it was just getting dark. And all of a sudden the traffic began to slow down to a trickle. And so when you realize that, hey, the speed is slowing down from what the speed once was, something must be happening. There is a change in the speed of the motion, of the energy that is in motion, based on the movement of the waves that are moving through geometric space. And even though this is when you get into time and motion studies of filling up geospace with waves, I began to realize something must be happening, and my intuition was telling me something bad happened. And what I mean by something bad, it means somebody's been hurt, which essentially means loss of energy. I was experiencing a loss of energy. And then as we got closer, I realized where that loss of energy was coming from. I looked to my right, and there I could see a gumball machine that was going around like this, okay, like a clock, spinning the red. And I realized, whoa, that's an ambulance. And then I saw there was somebody on a gurney that had sheets over the top of them, and I was experiencing the enormous amount of pain and suffering that was being experienced by the being that was on that gurney. And I was experiencing so much of their pain and their suffering from being able to experience the signals that were coming from that being that I was experiencing. It shook me up really, really bad. And I didn't mention it to my father because I didn't want my father to realize how shaken up that I was by experiencing such a major loss of energy that being that was on that gurney was experiencing. And it shook me up because I can't stand to experience the loss of energy in another living being. That's when I first realized how deeply affected that I was over the loss of energy that another being is losing as a result of being injured. And it bothered me terribly. And I couldn't understand why I was in a reality in which I was experiencing anything like that, when you realize you have so much love in your heart, that how is it possible that I could experience in me such a great loss of my own energy, which is why it shook me up. I was experiencing the loss of energy that was in that being, that I was experiencing the loss of energy in me. So when you add this up across the entire electromagnetic spectrum of the planet and all of the beings that are here, when you acknowledge that this is our home world, one of the things that I made a comment to when Lori Ladd, who comes on and shares what her spirit guides are sharing with her about shifting the consciousness into fifth density and learning to let go of a lot of the electrical resistance that isn't allowing all of our circuits to experience the higher speed of the electrons, in which our light is burning higher and we're fearing more of what love is and what joy is. And that is essentially the outside time experiences that we experience in eternity, which means we are eternal light and living spirit. That's the higher density consciousness, heavenly realms. Okay? So one of the things that I noticed that, and this is, I make no criticism of her at all, okay? Because I love everything that she's doing, because she's assisting and helping those to navigate why these events are occurring. But when she makes sort of a self-reference, identity reference with the Palladians are not native to this planet, okay? So I'm sort of guessing by the way she sort of self-identifies with them that she's a Palladian, okay? There is one group of Palladians that are high frequency, loving, generous, compassionate, and empathic beings, much in the way that she is, because I can feel her spirit and I love her spiritual energy, okay? So one of the things that I wrote to her YouTube video that she did this morning, that I felt that it was important to impart here, because I recognize that there are beings that are from all over the cosmos that are here, that are shifting to the higher density consciousness. And because I happen to represent White Bear Clan, which is native to this realm, I felt that it was incumbent upon me to remind her that although we have a lot of beings that are not native to this realm that are here, that are capable of running the higher frequency speeds, I reminded her that it's important to be cognizant of the fact, okay, that there are beings here that I want you to be aware of, that are native Indians. And because of the spiritual relationship that we have with our spiritual goddess of humanity, which is Gaia, it means that she has to be cognizant of the fact that those are going to have some of the most greatest difficulty in releasing a lot of the traumatic injuries and the pillage and plunder that took place on this planet, which is basically the rape and the pillage of a spiritual goddess that is in this planet, are those that represent the native Indians, which are native spirit to this realm. Because we are the ones where this is our home. And the relationship that we have with the girl on the planet is a mother goddess that we are in alignment with, that we honor as the matriarch. Because everything that she gives us, to the native Indians and clans on this planet, she gives us for free. So when you come in here and rape her and pillage her so that they can live in self-indulgence and a perversion of nature, she needs to understand that the ones that need the greatest amount of healing are the ones that live here in this home world, who experienced all the pillage and rape of the girl on the planet that we have a loving relationship with. That's the truth. That's the difficulty that I have. Okay? Because when I experience the rape of a girl, whether it's down the street, I can't even begin to tell you how much pain and suffering that I experience from that. Because life comes out of that girl. So when you do that to a mother goddess in the planet that is providing everybody all of its water, all of its air, all of its energy, and they come in here and rape her as if it doesn't matter, because what matters is matter, which is in material form and not spiritual form, that is living in the light, and you realize the amount of destruction that took place to the living energies of this planet that was giving everybody energy for free, then you can begin to understand how much pain has to be healed on this planet by everything that is living, that is here, that suffered all of that damage. Okay? And that's everything that's in nature. Okay? It isn't just us, which is the native Indians and the clans. I'm referring to everything that is in nature because they are aware of it. It's why they live in so much fear of people that are walking around on 2 feet. That's the truth. That's why it didn't matter that you might look like a human. It's what you do while you're here. And that can be measured by the behavioral outcome of how much love and service we're giving to each other and everything in nature. Because nature is the provider of what we all use as the means in which is the basic life support system of this planet, because it's a living organism. We are in a living organism. So when you're doing things to kill off her, we are killing off ourselves. Because when we look in that mirror, we are a reflection in biofeedback of what happens to us that we did to her. Because that's how it works. That's how you learn. And that's how a student is measured in its coursework, by what it experiences. It is experiencing